Welcome back, everyone. Today we are diving deep into the topic that doesn't always make the headlines, but I believe it should. We are talking about how mid-sized carriers can stay competitive in the rapidly evolving logistic landscape. And to help us unpack it all, we've joined once again by Wolfgang Lamacher, our trusted voice in supply chain strategy and innovation. Thanks for being here, Wolfgang.
Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah. And when we think about the logistics tech, it is easier to focus on the big guys like Amazon, FedEx, Maersk, and not every carrier has this kind of budgets. Yeah. And so, how can mid-sized carriers use the new technologies to effectively spending as much money as they have, let's say, comparing to the bigger companies?
We are living in a world where we see democratization of digital tools. So we have advanced in the development so that there should be something in store for everyone and probably across the range. That means off-the-shelf solutions or bespoke solutions.
Yes.
And when we think about the smaller actors, smaller carriers, it all starts with the understanding. If you want to avoid to spend a lot of money, you need to understand the landscape. You need to study. Also, based on my experience, it is critical, indispensable to have somebody responsible for selecting the tools. It must not always be the same person. It shouldn't be somebody in the IT department. It should be somebody with domain knowledge. But
Yeah.
that person has to buy in and commit to carry that project from the exploration to the implementation and probably beyond. So to be able to compete, you need a person, and that person has to gather the knowledge and build up the knowledge about the whole range of tools that could be helpful to stay competitive in the digital age. And that requires that the company goes through the entire value chain, so all steps of the process, and check what is out there.
Mhm.
And what does checking mean? This doesn't mean asking ChatGPT, tell me what is out there. It means a lot of communication. It means a lot of conversations and dialogues. And the best thing to start is with the peers. And there, with the pioneers, with those who are more aggressive, and
Mhm.
ask them and consult them, what are you using? What have you done? And how did you approach the topic? Because every company is different. So we have to understand the cultural context, we have to understand the operational context. And with that, all that information coming, of course, from research, coming from conversation with peers, coming from conversation with customers, coming from conversations with suppliers, and coming from conversations with technology providers, take that knowledge and pick one or two or three to look closer at. And then it is important to understand what does the implementation, the use and the implementation of tools really mean in terms of upfront costs, in terms of implementation costs, in terms of running costs, in terms of maintenance cost. And once you have the good understanding, which I have mapped out, then you are able to find the most cost effective, the most relevant, uh, and probably the most adapted to your environment solutions, to be able to not do the same what the big do, but do what fits the culture, the nature, the characteristics of a mid-sized company.
Yeah, completely got you here. And actually, that's like really great points that you highlighted. And I can say like the looking into peers, looking into innovators, pioneers in these fields that you're working in. So this really helps to find like and to understand what could be like the most interesting strategies that you can pick up that the most close to your, let's say, situation, to the company situation, the strategies that they can work, and they can, let's say, look into some cost effective strategies like some kind of off the shelf solutions or maybe some kind of modular tech custom implementations for them. So that is where they can see how other companies doing and check what would be like the best option for them. So that's like really great point for them to move forward in this situation. So yeah. And now moving forward a little bit on the other direction. So speaking about the mid-sized companies, they have one of the biggest advantage, it's the speed. And because they're actually not they down by some kind of bureaucracy or some legacy systems, yes. And usually how can like smaller carriers use their ability to adapt quickly to offer better services and compete with the bigger companies?
Building on the answer I have given just now, one of the advantage is to implement new tools much quicker than large players. We all know that a system implementation in a large company can easily take 1.5 to 3 years.
That's
In a
true.
small company, that can be done in weeks or at least months. So even from a tech perspective, there is an advantage to quicker implement, to be more up to date at a much less riskier path. So that's one point. I also believe that the speed or flow of information, whether tech enabled or not, is a key advantage of smaller players. Um, if everything is fine, we don't need that much of information, but very often things are not so good, and especially in transport and logistics and supply chain, it's important that customers are quickly informed, that suppliers can easily reach the relevant people in the organization. Of course, technology helps, but that's another aspect of speed.
Yeah.
Then it is not only speed that makes the difference. For me, there are two critical factors which make smaller businesses viable. And the one is that they have a much better understanding about their business environment, be it customers, be it suppliers, be it their colleagues. We know that in
Mhm.
large companies, information doesn't flow easily
Yeah,
across departments. So, which
that's
means that they can much faster problem solve, and based on a lot of expertise, of teamwork, based on the knowledge they share. And the
mhm,
second very important point is that smaller companies usually have much stronger relationships with their stakeholders, with their clients. And these relationships are built on the basis of competence and speed.
mhm,
And they help to allow them to exist, to find the niches, to get the rewards they need.
yeah.
So it's relationship, right? It's knowledge or familiarity, uh, and it is speed that allows them to compete.
So this is like great points that you mentioned, Wolfgang. So, and I completely understand what you are talking about, especially about the specifics of the smaller companies that they have like really great connection with their clients and they are really better listeners toward the pain points or challenges they have. So that is why they can adjust to them. And of course, they are more up to having the possibility to pivot on the strategies, to pivot on the technologies, and that is why this is like really great competitive advantage that they have in their pocket. Yeah, so this is like really great ideas that you just highlighted. And moving forward, so we've seen when the big guys team up, where it's like with the tech firms or each other, they gain like really even more power. And that is why the collaboration could be not only just for the giants, and how we can, let's say, mid-sized companies work together with others and stay competitive against like big tech companies as well, and what these partnerships can look like.
You made a very important point, that giants team up with giants, and smaller carriers usually team up with smaller partners. And this also means something for the market, for the positioning, because the team ups between giants is usually for giant clients, whereas the team ups between smaller actors is also for the smaller actors or for specific chunks of business from the bigger clients. So,
Yes.
and this is how the market, in fact, falls into its segments. So everybody has a place. And when we think about the collaborations, there's the whole range. Uh, I go back to my previous comment, which is about the company culture. Some companies can do looser and some need closer relationships.
Mm-hmm.
It depends how the owner may think or how the top management thinks. Usually, the team ups between smaller actors are less formal because the people know each other or the people have tested each other. It's
Yes.
much more like a marriage than like a contract. And that means that we go straight into the operational mode and helping operational collaboration is the foundation of these partnerships, where of course digital tools, digital platforms can help. But I believe that the partnerships between smaller actors are usually stronger. They are built on trust. They are built on similarities,
Yeah.
and they are usually long term, because once a smaller actor has engaged, he wants to keep that engagement going for some time, whereas larger players can be at times very transactional.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's for sure. That's for sure. And this is like really exactly this kind of small, smart alliances. For example, some regional networks, or even some companies go into co-investing in some tech that they use together. So this is something that really helps to build like more strength for their companies, more numbers, and serving for more clients, and provide like more better, let's say, values that they can give for their end clients. So this is why like really great options for like mid-sized companies or in small-sized companies to survive as well in like the really competitive landscape that we have here in logistics. That's true. And speaking about the data, yeah, everyone knows it's key to running like smarter business, but not everyone has like a data science team at their disposal. And that is why how, let's say, can mid-sized companies use data to improve their operations and customer service. And if they don't have this kind of large scale data tools, for example, like big companies have, so what they can do?
This is one of the most fundamental questions. And it starts with they need to do. It's not what can they do? They need to get their data universe into order. And this usually requires external help. So data is the foundation of digitalization. Data is the foundation of accuracy. Data is the foundation of applying tools like AI or
Yeah.
advanced technology. And before mid-sized carriers implement solutions, they should ensure that their data is in order. And that means to do two things. The first is a data audit.
Mm-hmm.
It's to understand what is the data we have in our house, where does it sit, what is the quality of this data, etc. And the second is that they have to understand the need, or they have to make a need analysis. What is the data they think they need to
Yeah.
better do the business? And these two things are the foundations. And then they can, as we discussed at the beginning, they can launch a project to think about and find the best way for them to organize and extract value from that data.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. And that's like really helpful what you just mentioned, these kind of steps that they must have yet to organize and do it, their companies. And of course, like they, that's really important to understand that they can have lots of data, yeah, but it's really important to pick up and focus on the right data that actually help them and not just spread out on all the trying to get all the information that they can. They for sure need to focus exactly on this piece of information that really helps them to improve their process, to make their services better. So that's for sure. And moving forward, e-commerce has changed everything. So delivery expectation, package sizes, customer touch point, and it's actually not slowing down. I believe like it's even speeding up really fast. And that is why with the e-commerce growing, how can mid-sized carriers adjust their services to meet the new demands of the customers and stay competitive?
E-commerce is a very important topic in logistics, certainly. I believe we have entered the phase of phygital commerce, which means the fusion of the offline and the online world. And that also is important for the answer, because you can stay offline, but then somebody will run you with the online capabilities. So better you develop your own online capabilities to be able to integrate into the e-commerce world, than just being a commodity that is plugged under a digital uh, platform, let's call it like that, or architecture or infrastructure. That means that to stay competitive, the mid-sized carriers need to digitize at least to the stage that they can integrate with e-commerce players, with their e-commerce customers. And that requires that they develop some kind of tool, or use some kind of tool to do so. Without that, they are totally dependent on the digital players and will have their existence. There is no obligation to digitize, but it will significantly impact their long term viability from a margin perspective.
That's for sure. That's true. So actually, this is like a really key point because digitalization is not like the must action that the companies do, especially like in their work. But of course, if you're not moving online, so you're losing the customers, and your competitors can, I believe, really quickly to overrun you and take your market share. So that is why having this kind of flexibility, maybe doing some partnerships, let's say with some kind of last mile companies, or some additional integrations with, as you mentioned, the e-commerce players, e-commerce platforms. So this really helps to provide you like really some kind of additional competitive advantage and stay viable longer, comparing to other who are not going into the digitalization that fast. And that is why it's all about like meeting customers so there they are, and making, let's say, their lives easier and adding the value to them. So thank you, Wolfgang. I believe we've covered most of the points that we have on the plan today. So thank you for sharing your insights. You really helped us to understand how the mid-sized carriers can thrive in this kind of competitive area, competitive landscape, and not just by trying being the giants, but the playing on their own strengths like agility, focus, and smart collaboration. To our listeners, if you found value in this episode, please hit subscribe and leave a quick review, and share with someone who is working in logistics and looking into competitive edge. And until the next time, stay curious and move forward.